Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Kanyinyuzi Betty, but you can still call me Nyunyu. As we had told you in my introduction video that we are going to be talking more about information literacy. What is information literacy, sources, and many more about information literacy. That is specifically what we are going to talk about this time. So today, I've come with the different sources of communication, and this is what we're going to talk about. So let's begin. I'll go in my folder and open up. You're going to talk about the primary source of information. So today we are going to talk about the different sources of information, and the first slide is this one. Then let's go to the second slide because it's the one with what we want to talk about today. This is what we're going to talk about, the different sources of information. So we have three different types of information. That is the primary source, secondary source, and the tertiary source. But for this video, we are just going to talk about the primary source. It's the primary source we're going to talk about in this video mainly. But then I just wanted to give an overall introduction to all of the three types of information sources. So to begin with, it's primary sources. The definition is that the definition reads that they are the raw data or original sources of information before it has been analyzed. So that is simply what we mean by primary sources of information. The raw facts or the original sources of information before it has been analyzed. When we talk of the characteristics of primary sources, the first one, it is first-hand observation. As we say, it is the information that has not yet been analyzed. Then there is contemporary accounts of events and then viewpoints at the time. Since it is for primary source, it is information that has just taken place that has not yet been analyzed. So that is those are the three characteristics of, as I have here in my work. Then the examples of primary sources of information: one, interviews, speeches, diaries, birth certificates, and many others. So that is simply an introduction of primary sources of information. When we talk of secondary sources of information, we mean the sources that analyze or interpret primary data. Because you said in primary, it has not yet been analyzed. Meaning after it has been analyzed, it is now secondary, it's no longer primary. So the analysis of primary information is what we term as a secondary source. And the characteristics are interpretation of the information, because you're interpreting what you already found, you're now interpreting to understand. Then the other one we have written after the event. But now for primary, we said for primary it is written on the real event, or it is the information taken during the event. But now for secondary, it is written after the event. And the third characteristic is offer review. It is offering review. Then the examples I have here, it is biographics, journal articles, textbooks, and many others. Those are some of the examples of secondary sources of information. The other one is tertiary sources, and the definition is sources that compile data on particular topics. So it is a combination of both primary and secondary, because by the time you come up with a topic, it means you have analyzed something, you've combined all the needful information to come up with one body, which is a topic. So that is simply the tertiary source of information. The characteristics are collections or lists of primary and secondary sources, reference works, finding tools for sources, and those are some of the characteristics we have. The examples are bibliographies, abstracts, indexes, literature reviews, and many more. So those are some of the examples of tertiary sources of information. So that was just a simple introduction about the three types of information, but as I said, we are mainly going to focus about the primary source of information. So when you go to the third slide, here you go. It shows information sources. These ones are not specific. Information sources, books, ebooks, articles, maps. This one contains both primary, secondary, and tertiary. But now we want to specify. And now the definition is here. A primary source is a direct piece of evidence created at the time of event or by someone who directly experienced the event. Meaning, in most cases, the primary source is from someone who was at the scene, someone who was present as a given event was taking place. For it has not yet been analyzed, but is information gotten from the real source at the exact time the event is taking place. So that is simply the meaning of a primary source. Then, these are the characteristics of primary sources. Originality. These sources are the first to provide information about an event. The second one says raw data. Primary sources often present raw and filtered information. The reason when I add on this point of raw data is simply because we said these are the events that are recorded or taken at the exact time the event is taking place. Before they are analyzed, they are taken in for future analyzing in form of. So in the process of analysis, it is when we will use secondary sources. But as data has been received, the event or on an ongoing event, that is what we call primary source of information. Then there is unmediated evidence. There is no analysis from another person. The source itself is the evidence. And then there is time related. It is time related. They are closely to the moment in which they are created. So those are some of the characteristics of primary sources of information. So when we are to continue on this, we have different examples of primary sources of information. The first one, documents, creative works, artifacts, scientific data, as my illustrations are showing here. Those are some of the examples of primary sources of information that we can use. Then the purpose. One, there is raw evidence, there is research foundation, there is inside context, there is direct connection, and that is simply the purpose of the primary sources of information. And finally, primary sources are essential in fields that require original data. They're essential in fields that require original data. Yeah, do not forget that. They are very, very crucial.